Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is Pam with Perfectly Holistic, and I am joined by my beautiful co host, Dr. Barry Sands. And we are here for another really, really cool talk on energy, frequency, and vibration. And today we are going to be diving into a really interesting topic. The energetics of death and dying. So, as we get started, if you guys are watching, do drop us a comment. Let us know where you're watching from so we can say hello to you. And then we love taking questions. So as we go through this conversation tonight, and it's going it can be a little broad, but we're going to really dive into some areas a little bit more in depth and kind of pick things out and discuss them. So we want this to mean something for you guys, and we want you to be able to take something away looking at this whole topic with new eyes and hopefully learning something different, a new perspective. And we just ask that you keep an open mind and an open heart. So, and if you have questions, by all means, do drop them in the comments over here. And let me just make a real quick note to all of you guys watching on Instagram. We are streaming there, but we are not able to see your comments. So if you want to drop a comment, you'll have to go to our YouTube platform or our Facebook page to do so. So hop on over here if you need to. But thank you guys for joining us. And Dr. Barry, where should we start?
Oh, gosh, Pam, this is such an important topic that affects the lives of everybody. Nobody is untouched by the concept and the aspects of death and dying, right? In the human world, in the animal world, in the plant kingdom. I mean, we're all affected by that. And it means so many different things to many different people. From our cultural differences to our maybe spiritual or religious upbringings. There's all these different ideas of what happens, and what is the process, and what happens when you die, where do you go, and the aspect of things like reincarnation. Do you come back? Do you just go away? Do you go into the ethers? It brings up the concepts of spirit and ghosts and multi-dimensions and different realms. It's a really big topic. And I think, I think for our pet parents, I think one of the things that it's important to address is what does that look like for us with our animals? Because there's so many different questions that people have around that. For instance, if you have a sick animal, because we are a profession that allows and embraces euthanasia, the aspect of taking that life in a medical way, that always brings up the question of, when is it the right time?
Yes.
How do I know if this is the right time? And it's a whole conversation in itself.
No, it's true. And Delph Blue over here says she had to put her cat to sleep in December, and it still breaks her heart. And I didn't know if I did the right thing. So you're right. We're left with these questions and these doubts. Like, were they ready? Were they upset because they weren't ready? And we don't want to make the wrong decision. And I just always tell people to trust your gut. And if you really feel like it's time, follow your heart. And I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit more, but I also know that our pets don't ever hold that against us. So
right. Well, that's absolutely correct. I mean, they never hold that against us, for sure. So any regret or guilt around that aspect it's not important. But what I think is important in the relationship between the human animal bond, when we're talking about death and dying, is relates to our own personal feelings about death and dying. And when a human is even when we have sick elderly parents and they're in the hospital or they're in hospice care,
Mm-hmm.
When when you're on life support, and they ask you, do you want to pull the plug? Do you want to turn it off? What is your decision-making process around that? And there's many aspects, because even the person or the animal that is in the position of dying really appreciates the permission to die, the ability for us to let them go.
Mm-hmm.
And that is part of the aspect of what we're going to talk about. It's called dying consciously, and basically what that means is that you're transitioning from this physical plane into a spiritual plane without all the baggage that has tethered you to this reality.
Mm-hmm.
All the regrets and all the shoulda, woulda, coulda, all the guilt, all the judgments, that you have upon yourself, your life. When we enter this moment of dying, there's a process of recapitulation, which basically means you're taking life inventory.
Yeah.
It's like when people have near-death experiences, they'll say, my life flashed before my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that I ever did,
Yeah.
and in slow motion sometimes. And you have this moment could be, a few seconds, but yet in your recapping of that, because time is in a different space, you are actually seeing everything, that you've gone through. And when we take that inventory of our life, and we could do this, you don't have to wait for a near-death experience. You could do that, say, in the process of with our animals.
Yes.
If we're making a decision to put them to sleep, go through that life process. Let recap your whole relationship with your animal, with your cat, your dog, your bird, whatever it is, their life, the joys, the love, the experiences that you've had. And you will, I agree with you when you say, like, when you go into your heart, you'll know when the right time is.
Yes. I'm going to share a comment up here from Delph. She said, later that day, I thought I saw a shimmering of her moving in my apartment. Was I seeing things? No, you weren't.
No. So when the spirit, when the body, when the physical body is gone, the heart stops, the neural activity in the brain ceases, it opens this portal into different dimensions where into the world of spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And there are moments where the spirit will go and just go into the ethers and be gone. And then there's times where they're going to kind of linger in that sort of ethereal realm.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then they linger for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
They linger because of that cord, that energetic cord that we have with them. Right. The love, maybe, we're not ready to let them go. Maybe there's something that we need to learn from the experience, and it might just be comfort, that we need for a short amount of time. And your animals, you'll see them. They'll see them maybe at the corner of your eye. You'll see them running down the hallway. You might hear them. You might hear their noise, their bark, their meow.
Mm-hmm.
Little signs that they're with you.
Yeah.
And it's not that they're feeling trapped or suffocated in this realm, like, okay, I'm stuck and I want to go. They're there to be of service for us.
Mm-hmm.
Because you and I, before we got on this call, we talked about that it is sometimes, and I think actually almost all the time, it is harder on your heart to lose an animal than it is a person in your
Mhm.
family. And I've heard that thousands and thousands and thousands of time from all the clients that I have and all the animals that I have put to sleep.
Yeah.
Um, and the grieving that happens around that. And it is so much harder. And one of the reasons that it's so much harder is because there is this deep, deep, unconditional heart to heart connection that you have with this pet, with this animal.
Yes.
And it becomes a part of you. It becomes an integration of your
Your
being.
energy. Mhm.
And we talked about our biofields being meshed,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
how we share diseases and we can share epigenetic phenomenons. And all of that, we're so intertwined with them that when they go, it's almost like a piece of us is going with them.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'll share this brief story. When we lost my cat Hershey, who was my soul cat, that very night when we were going to bed, I don't remember how many of the cats were in bed with us, but all of a sudden, out of the nowhere, we heard growling. And all I could think of is that Hershey is here and they see his orb, but I can't see it. But they feel threatened by something they're seeing, you know?
Mhm.
And that's exactly what it was. Um, and then they calmed down and everything, but it was just kind of a confirmation, like, yeah, he's going to be here for a little bit because, he and I were tight. It was I was a mess. Um, but yeah, it's pretty crazy. Let me share this over here. Carlos says, I felt the weight of my cat sleeping behind my knees as she did often for several nights after she passed. Yeah, I
Yeah,
know. They just want us to know that, hey, I'm still here.
I'm
You
still
know,
here.
I'm
Right.
still here. I'm just not visible, but it's
Yeah.
funny. Do you think they understand that we can't see them the way they can see us?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, when you go into this, there's no really such thing as dying. Like no one ever really dies.
Mhm.
Right? I
Mhm.
mean, just like, Albert Einstein said,
Yep.
it's like energy changes is never not created or destroyed, it just changes form.
Changes. Yes,
And
exactly.
so as energetic beings, we're right now in this very dense three-dimensional body. But when this body is too old to sustain us, or it fails, or there's trauma or something that happens,
Mhm.
the energetic part, the spirit, the life force in us it's still there.
Yes.
And that cat or dog that's in that spirit realm, that energetic realm. I mean, honestly, I feel like they're in that realm half the time anyway.
Yeah.
Even, you know, and so
Mhm.
they know that you don't have to open a can of food. They're not going to eat it. They're not hungry. It's not about that. It's more about the love and the connection than
Mm.
anything else.
Mhm. Yes, I'm sharing some beautiful comments. We can, I think there's a part of us that can all relate to what these people are sharing.
Yeah. And
Um,
death comes in very, very different ways. There's the planned euthanasia,
mhm.
where of a dying, disease, decaying sort of body, and you say, okay,
Yes.
let's have a ceremony around that, versus a very acute, traumatic thing, right? Like
Yes.
getting hit by a car and losing them very quickly. That's a
Mhm.
very different energetic signature because it's so abrupt.
Mhm.
And in those ways, you know there can be different conversations between the spirit world and the human, because it's like it's more traumatic, it's unexpected.
Mhm. And
Yeah.
there's no closure. Like, I think a
I mean,
lot of people don't feel like they have closure because they couldn't be there to say goodbye, or, something happens when they're apart. And I think that a lot of cat parents and pet parents in general probably feel a lot of guilt because they weren't there, and they were alone or whatever their perception is. But I get it. I get it. As hard as it is to help them transition, I wouldn't miss it because I want to be with them as
yeah,
they transition, you
yeah.
know?
And I could tell you that animals know your relationship, they know your soul contract, that you have with them, even in that end point, because I have had many cases where the owner has an old cat or an old animal dog, and they go out of town, and the animal was fine when they left. The pet sitter was there, and all of a sudden they get really, really sick. And now they come into the hospital, and then some of them die, without the owner. And afterwards, in connecting with the owner and having the conversation, it's always like, oh yeah, I knew that was going to happen, because that I could never let him go. And I wouldn't want to ever keep him alive for my sake, but I couldn't bear it. And so it's good that he went without me, on his own. Like there are those that I swear that they wait for the owner to leave and then they transition, versus I even had a cat. Oh my God, this is an amazing story. I was in the ER, and it was a cat that was very sick. He had congestive heart failure, really bad heart disease, also kidney failure. And mom was thinking about putting him to sleep and having that process done. Before mom got a chance to come in, the cat went into cardiac arrest. And we, got him out of the cage, and we intubated him, and we did CPR. And I'm like, it is so rare that you have an animal with severe heart disease that you do CPR on and they come back. First of all, I have to give it, that's a rarity. So this cat, we ended up doing a defibrillator with the paddles, clear. And after the second time we shocked this cat, it looked like, first of all, he was dead. Like, he was clinically dead. He had no heart. He had no pupil reactions. He had no brain function that we could tell. And then after the second defibrillation, his body stiffened up, and then it relaxed, and then he started breathing. And this cat came back into this body.
Wow.
And I was so amazed. And I'm like, there you go. Cats have 9 lives. I don't know, and so he started breathing. We extubated him. He became alert. And he woke up. He came back from the dead. And the reason why he came back was because he needed to be with his mom, because like 2 hours later, she put him to sleep. And it's like, he went through all of that. He died, came back just to be put to sleep. And and for them, like, there was some situation that they had to go through together. Conversations, the words, the love, the connection. I don't know.
Yeah.
That was really important for the both of them, for that to happen. And that was just, it was amazing.
Wow. Yeah, it's totally amazing. Pets are amazing. They're so sensitive to our emotions and our relationship and our needs and things like that. Yeah, it's totally amazing. Amazing.
I'm reading this thing that you put up from Bronze Ragdoll about the little bunny.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's how we could, that's part of our communication process. They send us gifts, because the love that you have is still there, even if it's non-physical.
Absolutely.
Your attachment is you're still bonded by love.
Yes.
And it is eternal.
Yeah, here's another really cool comment from Lori Christine. Oh my God. They're so amazing. So amazing. I think sometimes, going back to how they depart and when they choose to depart, if they're away from their owner, I think sometimes, not in all cases, of course, but sometimes I think they spare their owner the having to make that decision for them, because it's just too hard for them.
Oh, yeah.
And so they take the opportunity while they have it to go ahead and make their exit.
Yeah. I've had cases where the animal is in oxygen and they can't breathe and they're really sick, and the owner comes back and they're talking about putting them to sleep, and then they make a decision. They're like, oh, it's so hard. I don't know. And they said, okay, we're going to take a few minutes and we're going to talk about this. And they have a connection with the animal. They see, they pet, they love, they kiss. And then they walk away, and then the animal dies. Like within a minute, the animal dies.
Yeah.
And then I go in and I talk to the client. I said, she just passed.
Mm-hmm.
She knew of your struggles, and she knew that it was okay. And she knew the decision was hard for you. So she did it. She did it by herself.
Yeah.
So that happens. I had another amazing situation where it was a mom and her 7-month-old puppy. She's only had him for about like 3 months, but she loved this dog. It was such a bond that was formed so quickly. And the puppy got into a car accident, and nothing was broken, but he ended up having head trauma. And he had head trauma enough that we had him on a ventilator. So we put him on a ventilator, and he was on a ventilator for 3 days.
Wow.
And he was very stable. We had him hooked up to an EKG monitor, blood pressure. He had his ventilator system going, so it was breathing for him.
Mm-hmm.
And his temperature was regulated. His heart rate was perfect. His everything, like he was like in a vegetative, like a coma. He was in a coma,
Yeah.
like in a coma. And mom came in to visit, and she's sitting there. We're on either side of the dog on the table, and she's like, well, when is he going to wake up? Like, how do I know? And I was like, I don't know. Just like in people, they could be in comas for weeks or months, or and that's really not a feasible thing for an animal and a person,
Right.
to do financially. And you don't really know what the brain level is going to be like when they wake up. So she leaned over to this puppy, and she had her face by his head, and she was, kind of touching him, his whole body. And she said, you are the best dog I've ever had. You've taught me so much and given me so much. I love you dearly, beyond words. And it's okay. It's okay to go. If you want to go, it's okay to go.
Mm-hmm.
At that very second she said that, the dog's EKG went flatline.
Oh, wow.
Just flatlined.
Yeah.
And it didn't even Brady down or get
Yeah.
tachycardic. It just was a normal, like beep, 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 and then gone.
Wow.
And I had all these chills in my body and tears in my eyes. And
Oh, yeah.
And I said to her, I said, he's gone. He listened to you.
Mm-hmm.
And then we all started crying, and it was just this beautiful, beautiful moment. And that is the power of our, we think that we don't have control over that, or when to die or when to live and all of that. But that was just a profound moment where she gave permission.
Yes.
It's okay to go. I release you.
Yeah.
They just go.
Mm-hmm. I think they do hang around for us in many cases, because we're not ready, or they're just not sure if like you said, given permission, and that's one of the hardest things for people to actually verbalize, is it's okay to go, because our heart is breaking, and we're like, we don't want them to go, of course, but we don't want them suffering either, or in a state like that, that's not sustainable, long term. It's really powerful. So powerful. I'm going to share one comment from Carla. She said, my father's last gift to me was allowing me to be there as he passed. At the moment of passing, I felt a physical fluttering of my heart as if he'd touched it. Oh, wow.
Aww.
That's really amazing.
Yeah. That happens in people all the time. That actually happened with me and my dad. He was on life support, and I was in California, and he was in New York, and I was the power of attorney. So they asked me, said, look, it's just not going to, it's just not going to work. He's never going to live. Um,
Mhm.
so do you want to, turn the machine off? I said, well, can he just die on his own? And they said,
Right.
no, it's on life support. It's not, you need to turn off the machine.
Mhm.
So, I was actually at work when this was happening,
Mm.
and I got it in my mind about okay, so if I'm going to do this, when would I do this? And, me with my sort of spiritual connections, I'm thinking all about numerology and what time it should be. And
Yeah.
should the numbers equal 8 because 8 is infinity, or
Mhm.
9 because it's a divine number? I was so in my head about that. And I was just it got to the point where I just stopped, and I reached out to my dad, and I was like, look, you have to help me. I can't do this.
Mm.
Please don't ask me to do this. You have to help me. And 3 minutes later, the nurse calls me, and she said, your dad died.
Wow.
She said his heart just slowed down,
Mm.
and it just stopped,
Wow.
even though the machine was still breathing for him.
Mhm.
And I
Wow.
was and I was like, thank you.
Yeah. That's
Thank you so very, very much.
Mhm. So that's another testimonial to nothing. Energy cannot be limited by time and space,
No, I mean, it's
because
completely
your
non-local.
connection to him was across the country, but it was right there. There was no division, there was no separation, and he heard you
Yeah.
and he responded. Yeah. I share something about my own dad's passing. When I left the hospital that night, knowing that they were gonna turn off all the, his pacemaker and everything, and he was ready to go. So before I went to bed, I just kind of verbally said, Daddy, come and see me before you go, so I know that you're okay. And I had the most interesting dream, and it woke me up. But I remember seeing, it was like looking at a darkened hospital room, and there were no lights on the machines going. It was just quiet and like eerie, right? And he was across the room, kind of hovering, looked like he was asleep, and his head was down, and he was facing away from me, and he was wearing the gown or whatever, and it was just really calm and peaceful. And then I woke up, and it was 3:33, which is a very powerful number, by the way. If you're not familiar, go Google 3:33. Um, it turns out that is a very common, powerful hour where the veil is very thin. And so a lot of people, spirits depart at that time of day. And it was interesting because I woke up and I looked at the clock and I'm like, oh, wow. Oh, but he's gone. He's gone. He answered me. He came and he showed me in a dream that I'm leaving. This is goodbye. So my mother called and left a voicemail for me on my phone at 5:30 in the morning. She was waiting, I guess, thinking I was going to get up. And she left a message, and she says, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know that your dad passed this morning." And it was around 3:33. And
Yeah.
and and I called her back and I said, I know, because I
Yeah.
saw it. I saw it.
Yeah.
And it was one of those incredible moments that you just can't make up, you know? You can't make these things up. It bypasses all rational thinking, you know? It's
Yeah.
so cool. It was so cool. So, yeah, those
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
special
Beautiful,
moments. Mhm.
beautiful
Yep.
story. And
Mhm.
that's the magic of energy, spirit.
Mhm.
Where there's we cross these veils, we go to different dimensions, and we do that in our dreams. We can go into a spirit realm in our dreams. We can see our animals in our dreams.
Mhm.
They could come in when they're not in the physical form. And I feel like what's the hardest, honestly, for every death or dying situation, the one that's always affected the most is the living, is the one who has survived, the one who's died. Because usually the one who has passed is in a really good place.
Yes.
You know, they're just, you're just filled with love. Like you're entering that realm of love, and everything is okay. And whatever you've done, whatever you wronged, or whoever you might have wronged in the, you know, as a human, it all is forgiven when you go,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
It's all the contracts are cut. They're done. So there's no more, there's nothing tying us together anymore.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's yeah, I mean, I don't want to get into, you know, any sort of religious belief process, but you know, a lot of the constructs of death, dying, you know, where you go, nirvana, you know, heaven, hell, judgment day, you know, all of that, that's all very human, you know, manifested. That's a human concept of that. You know, there's nobody judging us. You know, we're beautiful. We're beautiful, loving, spiritual entities. That when we transition, we're part of that. We're part of that love.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I'm going to share one other comment here. This is comment from Yvette. There was more that he could not explain.
Yeah, sure. You know, and I feel like these are, you know, there are people that this is such a cool conversation, you know, the ethereal energetic world, that, you know, it's like closet case conversations, like, you know, let's talk about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Like
You know,
who can
and
have safely with without being looked at like I have third eye, you know?
yeah, but everyone secretly wants to have these conversations, you know, because it's really cool. I mean, I had a lady whose cat, she adored this cat, and this cat was very sick for a long time, and she nursed it and was with it, and she ultimately we put her to sleep, and her name was Penny, the cat, and she said that after she died, like randomly, like these pennies would show up.
Yeah.
Like these coins would materialize like on things that she's like, I know that there was nothing there. And then I turn around and there's a penny. Like it just, so now that's a very interesting phenomenon, because here you have a very material object that mom, like there's, you know, she lives alone, you know, and she knows that there's this counter had nothing on it. And then all of a sudden there's a penny there.
Yeah.
Where did it come from? You know, how did that materialize in this realm? So that's, you know, there's a little weird unanswered questions and little reminders of, you know, that it's okay. Like it's really okay. And that's why, you know, because death for us seems permanent when you lose that physical contact. So, you know, you know, that being said, it's really not. However, it's important, I think, to live, you know, every day with love and gratitude and care, as, you know, with joy, you know, in case it was your last, and not with sorrow in case it was not.
Yes.
You know, just live, you know, live and love as best as you can, because if you know, if you love someone or something to the best of your ability, from every core of your being, and, you know, and then it just doesn't work out, or they pass, or they're not in your life, you know that you've done all you could, you know, and there's nothing more you could have done. And there's a completeness around that.
Yes.
You know, that's not like, oh, I should have tried harder, or I should have loved more, or, you know, like you just, I think that's what people feel the most guilt about. You know, all the things they could have done, or should have done, or said, or experienced, and, you know, those guilts and regrets. I think that's what people hold on to when they feel that guilt, you know.
Yes, and if you think about it from an objective perspective, And if you asked yourself, would my loved one or my pet want me to carry around this guilt the rest of my life? Or would they want me to be happy and remember them for the beautiful person or pet that they were and their beautiful, their energy and our wonderful relationship? I mean, that's what they want us to hold on to.
Yeah.
Those great memories and those loving bonds, not beat ourselves up with, oh my God, I made the wrong decision, or I feel guilty because fill in the blank.
Right.
That's not how they want us to remember them.
No, I mean, they want us to keep living.
Yes.
They don't want us to die. We didn't die,
Yeah.
and so don't act like you died
It doesn't exist. It's just,
because you didn't. You're still living. So,
mhm.
enjoy that, because you're right. They do. They want you to be happy, and they want you to be joyous. And you don't have to feel guilty because you're happy.
Yeah.
Like there's mourning, and there's a reason why we grieve. It's important. It's important to honor, that sadness, because the final step before the acceptance and grief is sadness,
Mhm.
right? It's that process of first it's the denial, like, oh, this is not happening, and then there's the the anger, like, why did you leave me, right? And then there's the bargaining. Well, maybe if you do this, and I'll do this, and I'll, that whole conversation, and then you enter the sadness, and you really feel the loss in your heart space, and you sit with that, and you sit with that, and you cry, and you honor, and you recapitulate, and you think about all the beautiful things in your life, and you cry more, and
Yes.
and it's okay. It's okay to cry. And then you move through that, into that acceptance phase, where you can get a bunny, right? Or welcome that other animal that's going to come into your life.
Yes.
That's just going to take the place of that beauty, not even take the place of that, like a holding place, but it's just some other thing to love, because there's a lot of love to go around.
It's so interesting you said that, because I remember asking Spirit years ago, like, why can't our pets live as long as we do? And the answer I got was very profound. And it was just very simple. It says, because there's a lot of pets that need love. And if
Yeah.
their lives were longer, then there'd be all these animals that never would have the opportunity to learn to know and appreciate love and being a loving home and a loving family and all this. You know what I mean? So yes, they live shorter, but we can love more, and we can give them amazing lives, and they can give us amazing lives, and
Yeah.
experiences with them, as hard as it is to lose. But
Yeah.
we just have to look at it like, okay, who am I going to gain
Right.
next time around, And it makes me sad that some people just like close their heart off, and they're like, I'm never going to adopt another pet again. And they totally shut down.
Right. Right. Oh, because they feel heartbroken, right? Because it's
Yeah.
hard on them. And that's the invitation to heal whatever wounds that you have, because it's not just about that animal.
Mm-hmm.
It's about your concept of death,
Yeah.
and where all these other layers are affecting you, the losses that you've had, the missed opportunities that you might have had. Like, it's a deep invitation to look at your own life and see, like, what's happening there, because you're right. I mean, I have a client of mine. She's 84 years old, and she has this 4-year-old crazy dachshund. And he came to me because he wasn't moving, like his back was hurting, he wasn't walking, like he slipped a disc, and and he was in so much pain. So she came to see me, and I did acupuncture, and I did laser, and all these things. And I don't know, within a month the dog was just a wild man, and he hasn't looked back. He's this crazy dog. And we were talking about him, and this was her I think he was her number 6 dachshund.
Oh, wow.
And she was saying, like, we were talking about getting another one, and she's like, oh no, he's my last. He's my last, because she's so old.
Right. She's afraid they'll outlive her, right?
Yeah, but she had,
Go ahead.
and she had so much opportunity throughout her life to love so many different
Mhm.
animals,
Mhm.
and so.
Yeah. Yeah, there's they're so amazing. Um, so this comment from Joyce says, sometimes they'll come back to reincarnate. They'll come back into your life. Not always, but sometimes. And we can ask them to do so. Sometimes they have a job to do on the other side for a while, but then after time, if they choose to, they can. It's so interesting. If like one person said she uses an animal communicator, and I totally agree with that. I tell people all the time, before your animal passes, do a session with them. And then if you didn't do one before they pass, definitely save some money up and do it after they pass. Give it like a week or two so they have time to kind of get their bearings and figure out what their next steps are. It is life changing to hear from them. And you can ask them, what's next for you? Why did you have to leave so soon, or whatever the case might be, and to see what they say, because sometimes they say the darndest things. They
Wow.
have big jobs. They have big jobs. Like one of my cats, his job was to teach spirituality to cats. That's what Rocket's job was. That's what he said. Um, and I know that Jane Adrian's cat, Twister, or was it Biddles? I can't remember, one of them. His job was to be the secretary of the universe. He had a big role, and these little creatures, they're so amazing.
Right.
But they're spiritual beings on the other side, and they do have jobs to do. And
Yeah.
do you see? I see this, and I've seen it for a while. A lot of pets are leaving right over those last few years, like
Uh,
probably more so than I have paid attention to, but it just
well,
seems like a lot of them are just leaving
a
for
lot
whatever.
of humans are leaving.
Yes, a lot of humans are leaving too.
I mean, we've had an extraordinarily amount of humans departing in these last 3-4 years for
Yes.
a variety of reasons.
Yes.
Um, and there
Mhm.
have been, animals too. I think it's part of, it's all connected, and we're all woven together,
Yes.
in this beautiful dance, such as that we call life, but
Mhm.
but it encompasses, the death as well. But it's just another phase. It's just another phase. So it's like live well, die well,
Mhm.
you know, and be
Absolutely.
and be grateful. Be grateful for the time that you have, and the experiences that you can gain. And I think that when people think back about death, they always think about their life.
Mhm.
How can I live better, or well, or happier? And I truly believe that this is a time on our planet where that's a very conscious choice that people are making. There's a lot of us that are becoming more aware and more conscious of the aspect of this cohesiveness and this community and this co-creation of a world that we really
Mhm.
want to exist in, that has these attributes of love and kindness and tolerance and care and
Mm. Passion.
appreciation and well-being and health. Kind of, you can't have that without the emotional up leveling of those emotions. I mean, there's so much discourse in the world right now.
Mhm. Mm.
There's all these polarities that we have with our political systems, our religious, our social economic, our genders,
Mhm.
everything you could think of. There's some sort of
Division.
yeah. And
Mhm.
really, there's underneath that division is this unification concept of really being closer to spirit, closer to home, closer to love,
Mhm.
and then to transcend all our differences, because ultimately, truly, we are one. Um and we're unique expressions of that. But it feels so much better to love than to hate someone.
And I feel like it's easier. It doesn't require as much energy just to
No,
love
it
because
doesn't.
love is such a high vibration,
Yeah.
you know? Love, gratitude, joy, such high vibes. And
Yeah.
it's those frequencies, as we've discussed in the past, it's all of that. That is what saves the world. That is what helps you heal. That is what keeps you, cohesive and in unity and things like that. And we just have to keep striving to be that, be high.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And to honor our moments, honor our the things that trick us up, and
Yep.
and trigger us, and what is that, how is that reflecting in our lives, and let's look at that, and how can I navigate through that so I can feel better about that in the moments, because how we live is how we die.
Mm-hmm.
And it works. I know we're kind of going a little off topic, but when you're with that animal and they're taking their last breath, and I've taken their last breath, like I physically inject this substance into these animals, so I am an integral part of that passing.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say a prayer, and I'm always open for them, and I know when they go, because I could feel their energy kind of coming up through my body, and then it
Mm-hmm.
just travels up through, so I know when they leave that body. And it's always a very, it's beautiful. It truly is beautiful when they go. um and I could also, there were some that I could feel are trying, but they're being pulled back by the owner, and they're trying and they're being pulled back, and they really just they want you to let them go. you, you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
and it's a complicated conversation, because it's not always a mindful thing. Sometimes people are just saying, you know what, this is an inconvenience and I don't want to deal with this anymore, so put them to sleep. And so there's that aspect of it, and these animals are really not ready to go. They're
Mm-hmm.
not sick, or they're not this, or they're not that. I mean, think of all the animals that are put to sleep in the shelters because they're aggressive, and they have behavior problems, and they can't find them a home, and the shelters are
Mm-hmm.
too crowded, and there's just not enough space.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what happens to those souls and those spirits? So they're all, it's okay. Like, it's truly okay, because they do forgive us.
Mm-hmm.
you know
Yes.
I mean, I don't work in a shelter just for that reason. I can never do that. I'm not that person. And the people that do that are very, they have to be strong in a certain way to be able to, or they just disconnect.
I was going to say, I think it'd be easier for them to just disconnect than to feel. Because
Right.
if they allowed themselves to feel, I don't think they could do it.
Right. And then that brings us back to the concept of death, and how we feel about that. And are you
Mhm.
truly dying? And so, like, it's like that whole dynamic conversation, because regardless, for me, the body it's this sovereign little space that we hold our essence in. And, you know, every life has a spirit, and every spirit has to go somewhere. So,
Mhm.
I don't think turning it off is the answer. I think it's just honoring the life and making that choice, and being okay with the choices that you make.
Mhm. Yeah. No guilt. No guilt for sure. Um, we still have a few more minutes to go. Is there something you wanted to talk about with like the conscious passing and consciousness, or you mentioned it earlier, and so I
Yeah.
didn't know if
Yeah. I think we've sort of
time.
like, yeah, well, I don't know if there's maybe, yeah, the whole concept of dying consciously is really using your moments in your life, and and before you're dying, it depends on when you're going to think about this, but to really release the baggage,
Mm,
and the tethers and the connections that you have to this physical realm. And when you allow that to release themselves, that's when you could die in this way where you're like, okay, I'm ready. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I've let go of all of my earthly attachments.
Attachments.
And it's not, and it's the attachments of your own personal, your guilt, your judgments, your resentments, the things you need to forgive
Mm-hmm.
yourself and others.
Yeah.
The ones that have wounded you, the ones that have wronged you, the injustices that you've experienced. I mean, we've all had that, and some people hold on to that so hard for so long, and they take it to their deathbeds.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's not, when you go, you want to be able to be this complete little life force that just goes.
Mm-hmm.
And in our shamanic practice, when we go through death rites, we help the spirit sort of move along, and untether themselves, when they can't, or they haven't, or they're just kind of lingering in
Mm-hmm.
this space, because there's a lot of levels and realms and dimensions in that world, whether
Yes.
you're a spirit, whether you're a ghost, whether you're an essence, so there's a lot.
Wow, that's so cool. We may have to do a part
Another
2 and talk about that because that sounds pretty deep, but it sounds really cool.
Yeah. And just in the processes, if you are thinking about putting your animal to sleep, and it's nice to have ceremony around that,
Mhm. Mhm.
and to have, and the things that you could use, things like lighting a candle, burning some sage, doing some smudging, letting
Mhm.
the negative energies kind of dissipate.
Yeah.
Fire helps in the transformation process, letting to really transform things that you're trying to let go of. There's things like water. You can spray water, as a purification process, and then
Mhm.
blessings and heartfelt blessings. So it's beautiful to have ceremony around that. And I think it's important,
Yeah.
and,
My
and it really helps to close your part.
Yes, absolutely. A friend of mine, before her dog passed, he wanted a celebration of his life. So he had a party
Yeah.
and with hats and, his favorite foods and his favorite people, and everybody said goodbye. And, it was a celebration of his life, which was a beautiful thing, you know. Um, so I would say don't forget to celebrate their lives
Every day, celebrate life.
every day. Don't wait till the end.
Don't wait
But
for one big party.
no, but I love that. It helps us prepare too, emotionally and spiritually to let them go by going through those those steps, like the lighting of the candle, the setting aside time to just speak to them from the heart and tell them how much your relationship has meant and
Right.
how you helped each other, and even maybe even giving permission for them to leave if they're really struggling, you know. Um,
And when
it's
we have those questions where we say, I cannot imagine my life without you, right?
yes.
What part of your life can't you imagine? And what part of your life did this animal support or give or add to your life? Really
Mhm,
look at that. Look at,
mhm,
dissect that statement,
mhm,
because you will live without them. I mean, you're gonna live without them. So when you say, I can't even imagine my life without you, well, what does that mean? It's free,
mhm, mhm.
and that's a good conversation to have with your animal. All the gifts that they brought you, and it's time, like even in death, we give them, and in death they give us. They're giving us their eternal love,
Mhm.
and so we need to be open to receive that.
Yes. Yes. Maybe you can answer this question on the screen.
Ooh.
Are you I'm not
Um,
familiar with that.
I'm honestly, I'm not familiar with that term POA, but it's very similar to the Tibetan death rites. So yes, there is definitely overlap. with the Tibetan concepts of death and shamanic practices, because I mean, shamanism is just it's the original healing mechanisms. You know, it's ancient. It's ancient wisdom, like hundreds of thousands of years ago. You know, when we were just people connected to spirit, and there was no religion, and there was no dogma, and there was no someone telling you that you're not good enough and you need to pray to someone that's out there.
Right.
You know, it was more about going inside
Inward.
and connecting to that source, that divineness inside of you, which is connected to all things. Right. So that's shamanism in its, you know, in its foundation. And I think in the depths of the Tibetan world, it's the same kind of connections. You know, if you take about all the religions and all of the, you know, the Buddhists, the Tibetans, the Indian, all of that, the foundational, you know, they all have different language, they have different rituals, different ceremonies, different words for things, but in essence, we're all talking about the same thing. Truly, because, you know, we are from this singular energetic source of things, and we're just these holographic fractals of all of that energy manifested in this three-dimensional body. You know, and so I don't know. I mean, it sounds kind of wacky, but really the take-home message is, you know, live well, love hard, and with abandon. It's okay. You know?
Yes, absolutely. I'll share one more comment here. Tesoro.
Oh.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that so much.
Yeah. And, you know, we take lessons from our animals. I mean, they're all about love. You know, they're all about the joy, the fun, the even in the mishaps. I mean, they are, you know, and we just, you know, all the things I've learned from my animals, you know, is to just, you know, love and have fun, joy. Really, it's about joy.
Absolutely. And don't get stuck in the weeds. Just rise above. You know? Live in their essence of love and joy and gratitude, and embrace your relationships, and feel gratitude every day for the relationships that you share with your pets, because they won't be here forever. They'll be here for a time. So we have to just make the most of every day with them and don't have any regrets.
Right. Yeah. You know, and then if there's, you know, another topic, we could, you know, certainly reach on more conversations, or people have questions, you know, because it is a big topic. And, you know, a 1 hour conversation didn't really encompass all of it, but I think we talked about a lot, you know, but it still hurts.
Well, and you know what? If we weren't human, it probably wouldn't hurt. But we're human, and we have those emotions, and we have tender hearts, you know?
Yeah.
I think pets make us have even more tender hearts.
Yeah.
Because of that unconditional love that we share with them.
Right. And, you know, it's like, and crossing that rainbow bridge, you know, there's, rainbows are the only way you can cross a rainbow bridge is if you don't have any baggage to carry. You know, because it's all light, and you need to be light in order to, you know, go through that.
Yep.
You know, and so.
Well, this has been awesome. Let us know if you guys want a part 2, because there's definitely more that we can cover that we didn't get to, and just maybe more questions and answers and things. But thank you guys so much for being here. I'm so glad this has been meaningful for you guys. I know there's been so many just amazing comments, how helpful the conversation has been, and it's a very important topic, and that's why we wanted to share that with you. So we appreciate it, and we appreciate your time. Share this with someone who is struggling right now with grief, or is, you know, who's losing a pet, or who's about to lose a pet, or lost a pet, you know, or a family member. Share this with them, because hopefully something that was said tonight may resonate with them and help them move past in a healthy way, you know?
Yeah. And I also, on my website, if you are looking for a transition, I mean, obviously I can't euthanize an animal remotely, but, we can go through a process, a sort of a recapitulation death right process of letting go, so that's something that I certainly can offer for those people that are in that transition stage.
Oh, I love that so much. Is that on your website?
Yeah. Yeah. drbarrysands.com.
Awesome. Awesome. So you guys heard that. Go check it out. Reach out to her if she can help you with that, because that would be beautiful. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
So we'll be back again. I think we should do a part 2 and take it a little deeper. What do you think? I'm getting a lot of yeses over here, so maybe we should.
Yeah. Big topic.
Absolutely. Well, you guys have a wonderful, wonderful evening, and we will see you again for part 2 very soon. And with that, we will sign off and say good night. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.